Hello everyone, welcome to the Turkish Foreign Policy course. Today we will continue with Chapter 2, Turkish Foreign Policy in the Early Years. This chapter will begin with the main features of Turkish foreign policy during the Atatürk era. Then we will talk about the Treaty of Lausanne and the Mosul Problem. And lastly, critical foreign policy issues in the late 1930s. Let's talk about the main features of Turkish foreign policy during the Atatürk era. Status quoism and Westernism were the two defining features of Turkish foreign policy laid down by Atatürk. Following Atatürk's motto, peace at home, peace in the world, Turkish foreign policy from the very beginning of the Republic was against expansionism or making war with neighboring states to regain lost territory. As a newly established republic, Turkey refrained from adventures in foreign policy and sought to preserve its borders and develop friendly relations with neighbors and other countries as long as they do not threaten Turkey. Turkey did not necessarily isolate itself from the rest of the world. It was neither geographically nor politically possible for Turkey to detach itself from the outside world. Therefore, Turkish status quoism attached value to non-interference without necessarily isolating from the rest of the world and prioritized friendly relations with almost every country that respect Turkey's borders. Turkish foreign policy makers traditionally perceived the West as an important center of power in world politics, providing a set of important standards for cultural and social modernity, economic advancement, scientific development, political stability, and democracy. Turkey's aspiration for the West started in the Ottoman era in the context of the 19th century policies of Tanzimat and Islahat. Westernism in Turkish elites continued until recently. Atatürk's Westernism did not dictate complete obedience to the West. On the contrary, it was Westernism in spite of the West. Turkey's War of Independence was won against Western powers. The Treaty of Sèvres was forced upon the Ottoman Empire by major Western powers, including Britain, France, and Italy. Now let's try to understand the Treaty of Lausanne. The Lausanne Peace Conference of 1922 to 1923 was organized to formally end World War I after Turkish victory over Greece in Anatolia. The main players in the Lausanne Peace Conference negotiations were Turkey and Britain. For their part, France and Italy joined for economic reasons. The US was an observer to the peace negotiations in Lausanne, as it was not part of the War of Independence. The main issues negotiated at the Lausanne Peace Conference include territorial and military issues, foreigners' rights and capitulations, as well as economic issues and the Ottoman debts. Britain was a leading actor in the negotiations over territorial and military issues. The Lausanne peace negotiations proved extremely difficult as the basis of negotiation was different for the participants. Turkish delegates to the Lausanne Peace Conference used diplomacy to consolidate their military victory and receive international recognition. It is the only post-World War I treaty that is still valid today. There is also the Mosul Problem. The Mosul Problem could be seen as the only major issue for Turkish foreign policy during the rest of the 1920s. After Lausanne, the Republic of Turkey was established on the 29th of October 1923. Turkey thereafter initiated a pro-Western transformation process. During this transformation period, Turkey rather took a low profile in its foreign policy, mainly remaining loyal to its status quoism. Mosul was still an Ottoman territory when the Madras Armistice was signed. However, from November 3, 1918 onwards, the British troops started to occupy the region. Mosul was important for Turkey in terms of security of both Turkey and the Turkoman subjects living in Mosul. There was also the issue of oil resources. Right after Lausanne, the two governments met in Istanbul on May 19, 1924, for Mosul to no avail. Britain claimed that the land was overwhelmingly populated by Kurds and demanded that Turkey had no jurisdiction over Mosul. After the failure of the talks, Britain took the matter to the League of Nations on the 20th of September 1924. The League Committee visited Mosul and controversially came to the conclusion that Kurds in the region did not wish to be under the rule of the Turkish Republic. Our last topic is critical foreign policy issues in the late 1930s. The Turkish Straits and the future of the Sanjak of Alexandretta were among the critical issues in the late 1930s that would have posed a threat to both its relations with big powers at the time and their relative security and stability in the region. Following the First World War, the Ottomans lost control over the Straits since the provisions of the Sèvres Treaty in 1920 enforced a strict international jurisdiction over the Straits. The Sèvres Treaty was never realized since Turkey won the War of Independence and signed the Lausanne Treaty in 1923. However, the administration of the Straits was still under the authority of an international committee of the League of Nations. Right after the proclamation of the Republic, Turkey went into a process of restructuring its political and economic system through pro-Western reforms. Turkey applied to the League to reclaim its sovereignty over the Straits in 1936. The convention gave Turkey full sovereignty over the Straits. It authorized Turkey to fortify the Straits and conferred the right to close the Straits to foreign warships in time of war. The Sanjak of Alexandretta, which had been under the Ottoman sovereignty for a long time, was transferred to the French mandate as part of Syria following the First World War. In 1936, France decided to recognize the independence of Syria and Lebanon. Turkey was concerned about the political status of the Turkish community in Alexandretta. Therefore, just like in the case of the Straits, the Turkish government applied to the League of Nations in order to maintain the special status of the local Turks. An agreement under British mediation was achieved on the 24th of January 1937, and the Sanjak of Alexandretta was granted autonomy within Syria. Turkey's policy toward Hata could be considered as an act of irredentism by diplomacy. Turkish government never officially declared its intention to add Hatay into its territories. However, Atatürk, the president of the Turkish Republic, had been decisive to protect the rights and liberties of local Turks in the region. Turkey unquestionably aimed to protect the local Turks from foreign domination in Alexandretta. So, this is the end of our program for Chapter 2 of the Turkish Foreign Policy course. Goodbye and see you in our next program, Chapter 3.